Hello student, a very good day. Hope you all are safe and doing fine. I welcome you all to history class and hope you will enjoy the same. Before I start the chapter, let us go through few terms. What is history? Importance of history, and also how do you come to know about the past? What is history? The history itself includes a word story in it. Yes, you have heard it right. Story, a story of past, particularly how it relates to human. The story may be of a king and his kingdom. It may be story of a civilization, type of society existed, and culture of people. It may be story of revolutions and changes in the society. It is a study of life in a society during the past times and how it has changed now in the present. It is a study of literature and state of art of that period. Importance of history. Why should we study history? What is the importance of studying history? History enables us to link the present to the past. We get to learn a lot about ourselves, how early man were, how our ancestors were, how they lived from nomadic life to present day lifestyles, how the invention of potteries and wheel changed the life and the society of a man. By studying and examining the struggle, success, and failure of our ancestors, we learn how to examine ourselves and move forward. History allows us to explore new world and understand different cultures. History is roadmap to future. So, history records and explains the past events according to the order of time, or in other words, you can say according to the sequence it occurred. History History, the past can be further divided into two periods. Let us see what are those. The first one is prehistory. What is prehistory? Prehistory refers to the period before the invention of writing, when there were no written documents or written records available. And the second is history. The period after the invention of writing is known as history. How do you know about the past? Historians gather information who tells us about the past. Historians are the person who studies history. They gather information from different evidences left by the man in the past and they try to reconstruct these sources. So, in other words, the work of historians is to get the information with the help of different types of clues and evidences and bring it before us. These clues and evidences are called sources of history. The sources of history are classified into two types. What are those? Let's see. The sources of first one is archaeological source and the second is literary source. The first one, archaeological sources, are direct evidences. It cannot be changed or altered by human beings. Under archaeological sources comes four types: monuments, inscriptions, artifacts, coins. I hope you know what are monuments. Qutub Minar, Red Fort, Taj Mahal, Charminar are examples of monuments. Written records engraved on rocks, pillars, temples, walls of caves, on clay tablets, copper tablets are called inscriptions. Emperor Ashoka put a large number of inscriptions in different parts of his empire. Thus, much of our knowledge about Ashoka is through his inscriptions. The third one is artifact. Artifacts are the objects that human made in the past, such as pottery used by the early man, textiles, ornaments, tools, and weapons. And the fourth are coins, which gives vital information of history. It demonstrates trade relationships between different economic health of the period. Even in some case, years if it is inscribed in it in the coin. The second source from which we can understand the past is literary source. It records the past in the book form that are called manuscripts. As paper was not invented that time, it was written on palm leaves, bark of birch tree, and much later on paper. The literary sources include literature of Vedic, Sanskrit, Pali, and other literatures along with foreign account. The literary sources can further be classified into two forms, that is religious literature and the second one is secular literature. Now let's see what is archaeology and who are archaeologists. Archaeology is the study of the remains of the past, like monuments, tools, and weapons used, coins that were used by the people of that period, paintings, edicts, and other artifacts. The person who studies these things and bring it in a meaningful way to us are known as archaeologists. Welcome to the first chapter, Mesopotamia Civilization. It is also known as Cradle of Civilization. It's called Cradle as it is the first civilization and beginning of the very civilization. In this chapter, we will deal with what is civilization, how civilization came into being, how they started to live a settled life from nomadic lifestyle. Then we will see location and origin of the Mesopotamian civilization. We will look into the important features of the civilization like town planning of the Mesopotamian civilization and how towns were planned, architecture, what buildings were there in Mesopotamia, where society, where will we see the social classes of Mesopotamia, family, what was the family life like in Mesopotamia, Occupation of Mesopotamians. Art and craft. Kind of art did Mesopotamians do? Trade. Mesopotamians traded in what kind of goods? Religion. How did Mesopotamians view their gods? Script. How was writing used in Mesopotamia? And finally, the decline of the civilization. The word civilization is derived from the Latin word civitas meaning city. Mesopotamia is derived from two Greek words. Meso means middle and potamos means river. So, Mesopotamia, land between two rivers, is known as Mesopotamia. It's the first civilization which was situated between two rivers, Tigris and Euphrates. Here you can see the two rivers, Tigris and Euphrates. Between the two rivers is the area where Mesopotamian civilization started. On the map, this fertile crescent or quarter moon, it extends from the Nile River on Egypt's Sinai Peninsula in the south to the southern fringe to the of Turkey in the north, and is bounded by on the west by Mediterranean Sea and on the east by the Persian Gulf. The Mesopotamian civilization used bronze to make tools and weapons, and hence it is called Bronze Age civilization. In Mesopotamia civilization there were four regions: Sumer, Akkad, Babylonian and Assyrian. Various civilizations such as Babylonian, Assyrian civilization rose and fell in this region, so it is called the cradle and grave of many civilizations. Now occupied by Iraq, eastern Syria and southern Turkey. The city was divided into three main parts: the sacred area, the walled city on a mound, and outer town. The sacred area had a temple tower called Ziggurat, dedicated to the patron god of the city. There were smaller temples dedicated to other gods. This area also had a storehouse as well. The offices. The people lived in the walled city and the outer town areas. Houses were built along the streets. Each house had a central courtyard with the room around it. The Mesopotamian cities fell short in terms of town planning as compared to the Harappan civilization, whereas Harappan civilization followed uniform pattern nevertheless. And it is obvious as it is the first civilization and that came into existence, and Harappa came later. Sumer was an ancient civilization founded in the Mesopotamia region of the Fertile Crescent, known for their innovations in language, governance, architecture and more. Sumerians are considered the creators of civilizations as modern humans understand it. Sumer, site of the earliest known civilization, located in the southernmost part of Mesopotamia between the Tigris and Euphrates River, in the area that later became Babylonia and now southern Iraq, from around Baghdad to Persian Gulf. What is a ziggurat and why is it important? The main reason ancient Mesopotamians built ziggurats has its root in religious beliefs. They built them to make the temples closer to heavens and therefore closer to gods. This is tied to the belief that gods appeared on earth at the highest point in the land. Ziggurats looked like step pyramids. The tradition of building ziggurat was started by Sumerians, but other civilizations of Mesopotamia, such as the Akkadians, the Babylonians, and the Assyrians, also built ziggurats. What was the ziggurat of Ur used for? The ziggurat was a piece in a temple complex that served as an administrative center for the city. What is a ziggurat and why it is important? The main reason ancient Mesopotamians built ziggurats has its root in its religious beliefs. Why the city of Ur is important? From the beginning, Ur was an important trade center owing to its location at the pivotal point where Tigris and Euphrates run into the Persian Gulf. From the beginning, Ur was an important trade center owing to its location at the pivotal point where Tigris and Euphrates run. Ziggurats were pyramidal temple towers which were built by Sumerian city-states. Next comes the architecture. What were the main achievements of Mesopotamians in architecture? In architecture, the Mesopotamians' accomplishments were the development of urban planning, the courtyard house, and ziggurats. The Sumerians were the first society to construct city itself as a built form. The city was partly planned and part of its growth was organic. Architectural forms such as arches, columns, domes, and vaults were used for the first time. The Mesopotamians are regarded as the craft of building as a divine gift taught to men by the gods, and architecture flourished in this region. A scarcity of stone in this region made sun-baked bricks and clay and enameled tiles. Assyrian architects were strongly influenced by Babylonian style but used stone as well as brick in their palaces, which were lined and sculpted and colored slabs of stone instead of being painted. Existing ruins point to load-bearing architecture as dominant form of the building. However, the invention of round arch in the general area of Mesopotamia influenced the construction of structures like Istar Gate in the 6th century. According to one legend, and the hanging gardens were built alongside a grand palace known as Marvel of Mankind by the new Babylonian king for his wife because she missed the green hills and valleys of her homeland. The Hanging Garden of Babylon were one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. It was described as a remarkable feat of engineering with an ascending series of tiered gardens containing wide variety of trees, shrubs and vines, resembling a green mountain constructed on mud bricks. The Mesopotamian society was divided into three classes. The upper class, the members of the royal family, priests, and high officials were under the upper class. The main responsibilities of the kings involved participation in religious rituals, managing the affairs of the state in war and peace, writing laws, guiding the administration and execution of justice. The priest kings were believed to be the representative of the city's patron god or goddesses. They lived in temples and were cities' tax collectors. All people of the nobility class were in charge of maintenance, construction, and organization of the canals. The middle class was made up of merchants, craftsmen, and anyone who was involved in trade and farming. The lower class, this class consisted of slaves made up of prisoners of war, and these slaves could be bought or sold. Patriarchal society. What was the family life of the Mesopotamians? It is a society dominated by males in which father is the head of the family. The rights of the women were protected, elders were respected, boys were sent to schools to study and taught their family trading business. Girls stayed home and learned how to housekeep and cook for the family and were trained in dance. Occupation, agriculture. The Mesopotamians Agriculture was the main occupation of Mesopotamians. Need for irrigation led the Sumerians and later Akkadians to build cities along the Tigris and Euphrates. The river provided further benefits of fish, which was used both for food as well as fertilizers, and reeds and clay as building material. The invention of agriculture changed the way people live. Mesopotamians were first to cultivate wheat. They also grew barley, pulses, and fruits. Ox-drawn plows were developed by Mesopotamians to increase agricultural yield. Also used wheeled wagon for transportation of goods. It was revolution in development of society. The Mesopotamians did not have many natural resources. The Mesopotamians did not have many natural resources, so they used to trade to get the things that they needed. So, to get the items they needed, the Mesopotamians had to trade for the produce from the fields. The merchants traded food, clothing, jewelry, and other goods between the cities. They imported raw materials and turned them into finished articles, sold them at home and abroad. The quality of goods was strictly checked or supervised. Records of trade were written on clay tablets, and the Seals are the proof that trade existed between the two civilizations, that is, between Indus Valley civilization and the Mesopotamian civilizations. Mesopotamians were polytheistic, means relating or characterized by the belief in or worship of more than one god. People performed nature worship. Each city had its own god. People believed in life after death. What was the script that was used by Mesopotamians? It was cuneiform script. Why is cuneiform script? The term cuneiform comes from cuneus, Latin for wedge. Cuneiform was one of the earliest systems of writing invented by Sumerians and ancient Mesopotamians. It is the earliest known writing system, started as a pictographic system. It is distinguished by wedge-shaped marks on clay tablets. Here the picture showing wedge-shaped mark on the clay tablets made by blunt reed for a stylus. It had advantages of any form of written language. It enabled people to keep accurate records. They used punches to write on clay tablets. It is the earliest known writing that started as a pictographic system of writing. These clay tablets were baked and stored in an archive. Henry Rawlinson deciphered the language and translated into English. See this picture showing the pictographic representation and of the letters A, B, C, D. Next come astronomy and mathematics. The people of Mesopotamia developed mathematics about 5,000 years ago. They developed modern mathematics and astronomy while lacking calculators and computers. They were the first to divide an hour into 60 minutes and a minute into 60 seconds. They divided circle into 360 degree. They were the one who divided a year into 12 months. From a very early time, Mesopotamians had charted the movements across the sky of the sun, moon, planets, and stars. They were the one who could predict the celestial events, such as eclipses, using that knowledge. Hammurabi was a king of Babylon who compiled a code of law dealing with every aspect of human life. Known today as Code of Hammurabi, the 282 laws. Hammurabi's code is carved on an 8 feet high stone column. It lists 282 laws governing trade, commerce, family, civil, and criminal disputes. It prescribes different punishments depending upon the severity of the offense, the circumstances of the offense, and the status of the offender. Known today as Code of Hammurabi, 282 laws are one of the earliest and more complete written legal codes from ancient times. The codes have served as a model for establishing justice in other cultures and are believed to have influenced laws established by Hebrew scribes, including those in the book of Exodus. The codes were originally carved into massive monolith or of black diorite 8 feet high. And finally, the decline of the civilization. The Mesopotamian civilization was perhaps the earliest of the river valley civilization. It lasted many millennia but ultimately fell into decline. However, strides made by Mesopotamians in architecture, science, script have enriched the history of humankind. The vibrant culture declined and was gradually the Euphrates River forgotten. The Euphrates River, the lifeline of this great civilization, unexpectedly changed its course. These were maybe the reasons for the decline in of the Mesopotamian civilization. The inhabitants abandoned the sites. Winds and sandstorm eroded the walls and the monuments, burying the treasures of this great civilization beneath a sandy desert plain. Thank you. We will see you soon with the next topic. Our